Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another live stream. Welcome back to another episode. Welcome back to another live stream. Bitcoin is dumping $66,000. None of you who watch my streams, you who have been watching my updates on Bitcoin, you should not be surprised at all. You shouldn't be surprised at all. A couple of days ago, I analyzed Bitcoin around $70,000, and I talked about a potential local top. You look at Bitcoin today, $66,000. You look at Bitcoin today, $66,000. To me, all right, this right here, taking out $67,000, this right here to me was my second confirmation that this was the local top. My first confirmation was right here. All right, this 4-hour close below $72,000. So, yeah, this is my confirmation right here that the top is in, and we're looking at a pullback, somewhere around the low $60,000 range. But I think we are going to be here for the next couple of weeks, and I believe this is a preparation for the next major dump that takes the price of Bitcoin into the low $50,000 range. So this is exactly what we are going to talk about today, and we have been talking about this the last couple trading days. If this is your first time right here, guys, just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. If this is your first time on this channel, hit the subscribe button. If you're watching the live stream, smash the like button. I have an exciting live stream for you guys. I mean, every live stream is exciting, I think, at least in my opinion. But I do have an exciting live stream for you guys. Hopefully you can see the chart. Hopefully you can hear me very clear. Hopefully there is not a single technical difficulties in terms of the audio and the visual. But once again, welcome back to the channel. I have another incredible live stream for you guys. We have some stuff to talk about in regards to Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and oh my God, the altcoin market. RIP to the altcoin market in 2026. Yo, chat, I'm not clickbaiting. I'm not clickbaiting when I say altcoins are officially dead in 2026. And you're going to have to be patient. You are going to have to be patient until the bear market is over. Otherwise, if you want a dollar cost average into this stuff, if you think this is an opportunity right here, if you think XRP, Solana, Sui, XLM, Jasmy, Dogecoin, what else? If you think these are levels where you should be dollar cost average in, if you think this is a place where you should be building a position, hey, you know what? There's nothing I can do about it. The only thing that I can do is try to, give you my perspective on what the market looks like, both from the bullish side and the bearish side, and give you my potential price targets. At the end of the day, this is not financial advice. You got to do your own research. You got to arrive to your own conclusion. And if you think this is a market where it makes sense to dollar cost average, it makes sense to be in a hurry and buy as much as you can, it's fine. It's absolutely fine. As always, this is not financial advice. Make sure you do your own research, guys. This is nothing but information on the market. It is only for entertainment purpose, educational purpose. This is not financial advice. So make sure you do your own research. Anyways, let's talk about Bitcoin. Let's talk about where we are right now and, what's more likely. If there's anyone out there that has been very consistent, on Bitcoin and the price of Bitcoin and the trend, this is the most important one, the trend. Just go through my streams, go through my BTC updates, and you will know that I have been very repetitive. I am repeating basically the same information over and over and over and over again. You have a Bitcoin that is in a long-term downtrend. You look at the daily, Bitcoin is in a downtrend. You look at the 4-hour, Bitcoin is in a downtrend. Chat, even if you don't believe that this is a bear market, we have a downtrend on the 4-hour. If you go from $97,000 down to $60,000, they have been not a reason to be bullish on Bitcoin and not a reason to call for higher targets and not a reason to say that Bitcoin was going to be bullish for multiple weeks or potentially multiple months. And I'm saying this because you are on social media, you are on X, you are on YouTube. You know the people who have been extremely vocal, all right, throughout this entire dump. You know who they are. And every time the price of Bitcoin, put in some sort of local bottom, they were quick to scream that this is the bottom of the pullback and we have an opportunity to buy Bitcoin at $86,000. This is the beginning of going back to new all-time highs. But the facts are the facts. A clear downtrend. Lower highs. Lower lows. And even $60,000. They continue to say, the bottom is in. You better be a buyer. Don't wait for lower prices because you are going to miss out. But even if you believe, $60,000 is the bottom of the crash, at least wait for some evidence. At least wait for some evidence. And if your belief is based on, other factors that is not technical analysis, if your belief is based on the fundamentals, all right, we are, looking at completely different information. But if someone is looking at technical analysis, if someone is actually doing TA, and they say the $60,000 was the bottom of the crash, you got to be careful. You got to be careful because so far we don't have any evidence. We don't have any evidence that $60,000 was the bottom of the crash. And the only evidence we have is that we are more likely, until proven otherwise, we are more likely to lose $60,000 and we are more likely to go lower. And the reason I'm saying that we are more likely is because this recent price action where Bitcoin goes from $60,000 to $72,000, this is exactly the same as this move where Bitcoin goes from $74,000 back to $79,000. It's exactly the same, guys. It's exactly the same as BTC going from $85,000 up to $90,000. It's exactly the same. It is the same because this is a lower high, just like this one was a lower high right here, and just like this was a lower high. So the trend, all right, the trend that we have is BTC giving us, on a very consistent basis, Bitcoin is giving us lower highs and lower lows. So going from $60,000 to $72,000 does not mean that the bottom was $60,000, and it doesn't mean that this is a buy opportunity because we're going back to $100,000 or new all-time highs. Could we potentially go to $100,000 to a new all-time highs? Absolutely. But we need evidence before we confirm, the opinion of going back to those levels. You need some evidence. And so far, guys, we don't have any evidence. And recently, when the price of Bitcoin was exactly around $70,000, I told you guys, it looks like the top of the move is most likely in. And you're looking at a Bitcoin that pulls all the way, down into the low $60,000 range. And lo and behold, $72,000 happened to be the top of the move. And now you have a Bitcoin that is pulling back. We're in the mid $60,000. Just give it a couple of days, guys. We are about to lose $65,000. And we are going to be in my low $60,000 range. So my opinion is that BTC is about to spend maybe 2-3 weeks between $60,000 and $72,000. I believe the top is already in. All right, I believe this is the local top of the move. Could we go a little higher? Probably yes. I wouldn't rule that out. But I do believe, you have a BTC that is going to range for about 2 to 3 weeks. Maybe a little longer. And then, once the range is over, we are going to break down. And then we are going to head down into the low $50,000 range. This is my belief. This is my belief right here, guys. And the reason I think this is what we are more likely to get is all because when I zoom out and I go to the weekly, right, I don't think the bear market is over. When I zoom out and I go to the monthly, I don't believe the bear market is over. When I look at, certain indicators, if I'm looking at the MACD on the monthly, my outlook on this is that this MACD is more likely to pull all the way back to the zero line. And this is going to take some time. If I'm looking at the RSI right here on the monthly, I believe we have an RSI that goes just a little lower. And even if we do put in a bottom on the RSI, I think the RSI potentially goes sideways. And while this is all happening, the price of BTC will continue to go down. Right? Look, whatever you think of this market is perfectly fine. We all have different opinions. We all have different views. We all have different approach. And, whatever you do is perfectly fine. But in my opinion, is that if you look at the facts, if you really look at the charts and you look at the facts, if you think the bottom is in, then I think you need to spend some more time, looking at these charts. And I think you need to provide some evidence of why you think the bottom is in. And the evidence has to be just a little bit more than, the market is extremely oversold. What else? We haven't seen a blow off top. Liquidity, M2 money supply, and all these other things that you continue to see on X or on YouTube. So this is the reason, when I go down to the lower time and I look at BTC, this is the reason I don't believe for a second that the bottom of the entire crash is $60,000. We are in a clear downtrend, lower highs, lower lows. And until this is over, my primary thesis on this market will continue to be a bearish one. Like, I don't think I'm going to change my outlook anytime soon. So let me know what you think, guys. BTC, man, if you ask me, this is straightforward. Like, honestly, if you really, really ask me, this is, straightforward. You don't need to spend a lot of time analyzing this market. Once you open the monthly and it looks like this, go on vacation for a couple months. Go on vacation for a couple months. Don't look at the price, but continue to watch the streams. But go on vacation for a couple months, guys. Get away from this market. The best thing that you can do right now is, instead of looking at this market on a daily basis, just look at it on a monthly basis. Once a month, look at the price and, come back the month after. I promise you won't miss anything. Chat, I was thinking about, instead of doing these daily live streams, I was thinking about just, once a month, give you guys an update. But the only thing that stops me is I am literally building this channel right now. Like, I am building this. So in order to build it, I can't live stream once a month. I gotta have to do it at least every day. In order to build this, time is required. I gotta put more effort into this, and that's why, I gotta live stream every single day. But look, unless I look at different topics and unless I analyze Bitcoin from like a different lens, maybe using a different moving average or a different indicator, I don't think you are going to get new information that I haven't already talked about, right? I really don't think you are going to get anything new from me, because lower highs and lower lows, I mean, that's pretty much the entire analysis. All right, lower highs and lower lows, that is pretty much the entire analysis, guys. Like, we don't need to do anything other than that. All right? Yeah, so anyways, man, if we go down to like the lower time, let's go to this is the 15 minutes. I mean, I hate these lower time frames. This is the 15 minutes, guys. Look, on the 15 minutes, which is a lower time frame, BTC triple top right here. The moment you saw this, like, you should have known this was this was more likely the top. And then you get a breakdown right here, breakdown. Then, we rally back up, but it's fine because the resistance is right here. All right, the resistance is right here. And then after getting rejected multiple times again, look at right here, guys. First time, second time, third time, we started to put in lower highs. Look at this right here. Look at this. The 15 minutes is in a clear downtrend right now. So if I'm looking at targets on the 15 minutes, I got $64,500. I think this is exactly where we are heading. If I'm looking at targets, I'm looking at this $64,500. This is exactly my target. As long as BTC doesn't break above $68,700, So this will be my invalidation. So I don't know how this is all going to play out, but something like this. And then of course, if we can hold 64 $500, you're looking at $62,300. I think somewhere around here. I'm gonna say, look, somewhere around here is probably where BTC finds some sort of a bottom if we do manage to come all the way down into this range. But we don't have to, because if you go to the 1 hour, we could potentially get something that looks like this, where we stop right here, we go up, maybe like this, and then we come back down here, and then we go up, boom, and then we go up and then down. There we go. Something like this, guys. Like, I don't know how this is going to play out, but let's keep our eyes on it. Remember, if you're new to the channel, guys, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, and let's keep this show going. Once a month definitely would not be enough, especially if if you're building from the ground up. Maybe every other day. I mean, honestly, yeah, probably every other day. Yeah, look, I'm trying to to do daily live streams, because we gotta hit at least 1,000 subscribers. We 255 today. Yeah, we gotta try to get at least 1,000 subscribers. All right, let's talk about, what else should we talk about? IREN. Let me talk about IREN, and then I will jump into the altcoin market. Yo, chat, I believe IREN has topped. I believe this was the top, and I'm gonna try to explain it to you guys. I believe this was the top right here. $76,000. And the reason I actually believe this was the top is because, we had the top right here first around 74,000, and then we had this pullback all the way down to 48, and then we went back up again, broke above 74, but ended up with a pullback all the way down to $33. And then price goes up again, and then we put in look, this is a weekly lower high. If you go to the weekly, we put in a lower high, $63. And then I want you guys to take a look at this pullback. So, in my opinion, we are about to lose $3,300 and then, retest this $2,800. I don't have any more data. I don't know if this is all the data. Like, I don't know if this is the IPO or doesn't even matter. Let's just call it the IPO price, right? So I think we'll lose 33. We come to 28. I don't think $28 is going to hold. If it does, it won't be on the weekly. But I think we're going straight down to $15. I actually have puts. I have puts on IREN. The only way I'm going to be invalidated is if the price was to go back and break above. Look, if we can get above $63, I'll be in a position where I'll start questioning my thesis. But right now, I just think it's done, man. Like, I really, really believe it's done. The only thing that, when you zoom out, you go to the weekly. The weekly still looks good. Momentum still very bullish. But, right, in terms of the momentum, we are seeing a decrease in the momentum, guys, on the monthly. You can clearly see how the MACD histogram, which is a momentum indicator, we are putting in monthly lower highs. You can see how, the candles or the histogram is getting smaller and smaller, and we are actually changing colors. We are going, from green into, a more lighter color. All right, the color is more lighter now. So, to me, this is an indication that the momentum is changing. We are seeing a shift in the momentum. So, this is something to keep an eye on. Also, you look at the RSI, guys. RSI is pulling back. Once the RSI goes below the 50 line, it is over. But by the time we get to the 50 line, price probably is going to be around $15. And the other thing that I'm also keeping my eyes on is my 10 monthly moving average. Chat, if we close the month of February, it doesn't have to be February, it could be March. If we close the price below the 10 monthly moving average, I believe it is lights out. I believe that would be the end. I mean, that's basic, maybe not the end, the confirmation. I believe the end is already, like the top is already in. But once you go below the 10 monthly, I believe that is a very big confirmation. And if we're talking about the monthly, guys, look, I don't want to say it, but you're looking at $5. You are looking at $5. All right. So let's just, we'll keep a track of IREN and see where we end up. Another miner that I'm also watching is Wolf. Yesterday we talked about Wolf, and I told you guys, this looks good, but you want to keep your eyes on Wolf because it needs to close above $17. We need a weekly close above 17. Chat, if we close this weekly candle like this, it is over. All right? It is over if we close a weekly candle like this. Yesterday we had a red flag, and that red flag was we broke above $17, but we ended up with a daily close below 17. To me, this doesn't seal well with me. So I'm looking at Wolf right now. It is early. I don't want to say much, but I don't like what I'm seeing so far. All right, I absolutely don't like what I'm seeing so far. And also, when you go to the weekly, you look at the RSI, this could potentially be a bearish divergence because, look, price got to around $17, but RSI RSI with a crazy lower high. So I'm looking at this and, let's see how he plays out. Let's give it a couple of weeks. Let's see if price still above $17 or, we're somewhere below $9 or $10, somewhere around there. I appreciate the hustle, bro. Hey, listen, I appreciate you guys. If you guys don't tune in, I don't live stream. If you guys don't watch, I'm not here doing any of this. Yeah, there's a lot of fake hopium out there. 100%, guys. Someone's got to keep it real, and I think there's only a few of us who are actually looking at this market and are trying to be like we are trying. Guys, we're not bearish on this market because we want to be bearish. We are neutral. If a market is bullish, we are going to be bullish on the market. But if the market is bearish, we are also going to be bearish on the market. And I believe, honestly, if any of you guys is learning technical analysis, if any of you guys is really, really passionate about this market, and it's not even just crypto, the stock market, guys, don't be the person that is always bullish on the market. When you have new data, when you have new information, always be willing to change your thesis. If you're bullish on the market, 5 days later, with new information, something has changed, you got to pivot. All right, you got to pivot, guys. All right, trying to prove the market that you're right. Look, I just think it's the fastest way to blow up your account because at the end, the market doesn't care about your opinion. All right, no one cares about your opinion. The only thing that you should care about is your capital. And I'm in a position where when I look at the cryptocurrency market, let's be honest right here, guys. Let's just say you have saved $20,000 and you want to take that $20,000 and you want to turn it into, let's just say, $100,000. If you got $20,000 that you have saved, all right, let's say it took you about a year to save $20,000. Why would you put that $20,000 into something like a Zcash? Right here around $234. I'm just giving you an example. We can use a different project. Why would you put that $20,000 into Zcash that is in a clear long-term downtrend and where the price could potentially go back into somewhere around $50, $60. Like, why would you, if you think about what that looks like percentage wise, if Zcash goes to 80, that's a 70% crash. Why would you put $20,000 into something that could potentially crash 70%? Personally, I wouldn't do it. And this is why I'm very passionate when it comes to, hey, before you do something, try to make sure you actually done the research and try to avoid the bigger risk. This is not a market that is trending up, guys. I don't know how many of you guys have been watching my content, and I don't know for how long. When people say buy the dip, you want to buy the dip in a market that is moving like this. If a market is moving like this, you need to buy the dip. And the reason you buy the dip is because even if you make a mistake, let's say that $20,000 accumulates, let's call this Bitcoin, right? This is Bitcoin. Let's just say, all right, let's not call it Bitcoin. Whatever, right? Let's say your $20,000 accumulates this asset, let's just say somewhere around here. You bought almost the top of, no, actually, let's say somewhere around here. Chat, when the market is moving like this, even if you buy the top of, the rally, the market is going to save you. You are going to be bailed out. The reason is because if you give it some time and this pullback comes to an end, not only do price go up, it breaks above your entry and it continues higher. That's because you have an uptrend. The market where you don't buy the dip is a market that is trending like this. The reason you don't buy the dip in a market that's trending like this, it is simply because nobody knows where the bottom is actually going to be. All right. This is why when I look at the market that we have today, I don't know where the bottom is going to be. And since the market is trending like this, buying the dip is one of the worst things that you can do because the dip is going to keep on dipping. Chat, a couple of days ago, I put out a video where my prediction is that Bitcoin goes to $39,000. I say Bitcoin is going to bottom at $39,000. The truth is, I don't know if $39,000 is going to be the bottom of this bear market. It could potentially be 42. It could potentially be 45. So, do you think I'm going to wait until $39,000, before I pull the trigger, before I start accumulating? No, I'm not waiting for $39,000. Even if Bitcoin goes to $39,000, that's not what I'm aiming for. What I'm waiting for is to see a reverse in the trend of the crash because we could potentially go below $39,000. All right. What I'm waiting for is once Bitcoin is down, is done doing this, and I start to see something that looks like this. All right. I want to be a buyer somewhere around here. I'm not going to be an early buyer, guys. I'm going to come in a little bit late. All right. I don't want to, if 39,000 is the bottom of the crash, my entry is probably going to be $48,000 because I am going to be patient. I'm going to stay on the sideline. I am going to wait until the bottom is actually in. All right. I am going to wait until the bottom is actually in. And the only way I'm going to know that the bottom is actually in, I'm going to see an accumulation range. I am going to see Bitcoin breaking out. I'm going to see Bitcoin breaking structures. All right. In the last bear market, instead of buying at $15,000, I could have bought at $20,000, at $22,000, at $25,000. Right. Wait until the bottom is actually in. In the last bear market, I remember people started buying Bitcoin at $40,000 because nobody believed that Bitcoin could potentially go back to its 2017 all-time highs of $19,000. And the argument at the time was that, well, Bitcoin has never, in all its bear market, went back to retest its previous all-time highs. Okay. Not only did we go back to retest the all-time highs of $20,000, we ended up around $15,000. So those that started dollar cost averaging from $40,000, all right, when BTC was right here, those that started dollar cost averaging at 40,000, by the time the price of Bitcoin is at $15,000, yo, Chad, let's be honest right here, right? If you think 40,000 is closer to the bottom and you have $20,000 to invest in the market, how much are you actually putting in the market at first? Is it $2,000? Is it $5,000? Is it $10,000? Is it $15,000? If I will have to guess, I'm going to go with somewhere between somewhere between 10 to 15,000, or maybe somewhere between $8,000 to $12,000. Because if you believe we are very close to the bottom, all right, it is only right that your first purchase is, a bigger percentage of your capital, because you don't actually think we go much lower. So you want to make sure your average is very close to what you think is the bottom of the bear market. So with a $20,000 investment, and I don't even know why I'm using $20,000 as an example, it's just, a number that I'm just using. If you put $12,000 in at 40,000, Chad, let's be honest. If you thought $40,000 was the bottom, by the time the price of Bitcoin gets to 33,000, you probably have already done dollar cost averaging, because when BTC goes to 38, you add more to your position. When BTC goes to 35, you add more. When BTC goes to 34, you even add more. It goes to 33, you add more. All right, it goes to $30,000. You probably, like you in your last accumulation, but you go from $30,000 all the way down to 15K, which is another 50% crash. So, in my opinion, instead of dollar cost averaging from 40,000, believing that this is where the bottom is more likely to take place, I want to wait until I see something like this where, all right, this is our last lower high, which is $21,000. I want to see the price of BTC break above $21,000. And also, when you look at different indicators, such as the RSI, BTC is already giving us bullish divergences on the RSI, bullish divergency on the MACD. You break above $21,000. For the first time now, you have a reason to be bullish, because Bitcoin is breaking structures. And then price goes up to 25,000, and then you get a pullback to $21,000. And then we put in a low at $21,000. And then the price of Bitcoin goes from 21 all the way up to what? All the way up to 28. This right here should have been the final accumulation around $28,000. If your first purchase was right here at 21, after we broken above the last lower high, you put $12,000 into that position, you left with, $10,000. By the time the price is at 28,000, you're done accumulating. Your average price stands around $23,000, $24,000. Instead of what? Instead of $30,000. Instead of $33,000. So if I'm looking at BTC right now at 60,000, if you think the bottom is almost in, my guess is that you have already deployed, the bulk of your capital. And if we continue lower, like how much money do you really have to continue to dollar cost average to a point where your average goes from $60,000 into, the low 50,000, in the $40,000 range? That is the way that you have to look at this market. Right? Wait until the true bottom is actually in, because we could go way, way lower, guys. And of course, I'm using Bitcoin as an example right now. think about the altcoin market. Oh my gosh. Like, why would you? I'm looking at Solana. Why would anyone buy Solana at $79 when this is a project that could easily come all the way back to around $8? And this is not a prediction, guys. All right. I am not predicting that Solana is going down to 8. But what I'm saying to you is just be patient. Wait until you see something like this. And then start buying around here. All right. In the last bear market, you could have bought Solana instead of $8. You could have bought Solana around $25. Yeah. Look, don't tell me you could have bought $8. Maybe you did, but most likely, the bulk of your purchase took place around $50, $60. But if you wait and wait, the bulk of your buy is somewhere around, $21, $22, $23. If your entry is $23 and your target is just, hey, I'm only waiting for the all-time highs and I'm going to get out, this is what you would have done. You would have 10x your investment. Right? This is the kind of information that I really, really want to push out, all of 2026. All right. My thing is that there is not a reason to be in a rush. This is a market that will continue to go down for majority of 2026. And even if it's not majority of 2026, just, stick with the trend. Wait until you see something. Wait until there's a reason to be a buyer. And that reason shouldn't be, we were just at $300 a couple months ago. We're now at $80. That is not a reason. Right? That is just... Anyways, if I'm looking at Solana, Solana looks really bad on the weekly. Daily looks really bad. Monthly looks really, really bad. If we go to others, I don't know, what are you guys interested in? Almost done, guys. If I'm looking at Jasmine looks really bad. Really, really bad. There's nothing here to even... There's nothing here to even, even think about in terms of, being bullish. Gotta have to wait for something like this. If I'm looking at Zcash, I'm looking at much, much, much lower targets. If I'm looking at XRP, I'm looking at much, much lower targets. Much, much lower targets. If I'm looking at Dogecoin, look at Dogecoin, man. Once we lose 8 cents, you're looking at a retracement all the way down to around 5. And the scary part is that some of these altcoins could potentially take out, and I don't even say some of them actually, some already have, potentially take out the 2022 lows and even go lower. If I'm looking at Dogecoin, who's to say Dogecoin can go back to 1 cent? So if you buy right here because you think the bottom is in and it goes down to 1 cent, this is another 80% crash. This is another 80% crash. Right? And if you don't believe me, just take a look at Polkadot. Polkadot, who knew Polkadot would take out its 2022 lows? Literally, guys. The low in 2022 was right here, $3.60. Polkadot is currently at $1.26. Who knew Polkadot would trade around $1.20, $1.26? I bet you when Polkadot was around here, around $4, the influencers were shilling Polkadot and they were talking about how this project was bottoming and what an amazing opportunity this was. Yo, chat, I was once bullish on Polkadot. But the moment, I saw its performance and I looked at the chart for what it actually was, I sold my entire bag around $8. This is in 2024. All right. And then I also looked at it again and I was like, surely Polkadot's got to do something. But, yo, just look at the chart, man. The scammers. That scammer, AM Crypto, is getting wrecked right now. Glad. AM Crypto, who is that? AM Crypto. Chat, crypto, you gotta be careful right now. Like, honestly, not this guy, is it? Is that someone on X or right here on YouTube? Yeah, you guys, you gotta be careful. You got to be careful, man. Look, I'm not saying I'm going to be right. I can 100% be wrong. I can be wrong. All this stuff can go, 360 up to the upside, price going to the moon, BTC $300,000 to $400,000. But I just don't believe it. Yeah, this is MM Crypto. Yeah, I know MM Crypto because I used to watch some of his stuff like back in freaking 2018, 2019. Yeah, those were the early days. Let me look up this person. Is this the person right here? Is this the guy right here? Yeah, these guys are funny, man. You see this right here, guys. 5 days. Look, I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. Most likely, this is clickbaiting. Most likely, this is clickbaiting. And if it's not clickbaiting and he actually believes in what he says, yeah, you gotta be careful. You got to be careful. So, for the last 9 days, right, he's been calling for a bottom. Let me see. So get ready for. These are the only old coins I'm buying right now. Let me see those old coins. Hopefully I don't get Solana. Buying Solana where? So he was buying Solana. Oh my gosh, guys, look at this, man. I was telling you guys, stay away from Solana. And also, the reason I'm trying to check it out is because different time frames. Like he could be bullish on the 1 minute or the 5 minute charts. I'm not looking at those at those 1 minute, 5 minute charts. I'm looking at weekly. I'm looking at monthlies. So over the last couple of weeks, man, you know exactly what I told you about Solana, guys. Stay away from Solana because it's not looking great. This was Zcash. Look, Zcash was at $300 when I was telling you guys, do not do anything. All right, this was Zcash. Look, Zcash, hey guys, 327. You look at the price of Zcash today. Yeah, Solana right here. Look, Solana this is 118, but I give you guys heads up way before 118. Where is my Solana updates? Hey, go right here, guys. What was the price of Solana around here? Look, Solana was 116. Okay, here's when I was talking about bullish divergency, but kind of looking at the short-term outlook stuff, not the big, not long-term. But anyways, so yeah, look, this guy, man, long in Solana around 142, and he was what was he going after? With a stop loss below 130. Yeah, he's getting wrecked. So that was Solana. Is there another one? So he was going after 100% move. What target is that? Oh no, that's a different project. What project is that? You gotta be careful with some of these guys because let me see what. Which one is this? This can be Solana, right? Is this Solana or something else? This is Solana right here. But what was the next? But yo, anyways, so look, a lot of these guys, man, just just go through their content and see what they were talking about when the price of Bitcoin was at certain levels, and see where the price is today. It's a lot easier to do research on people like this because, like, it is right there. It's right in front of you. You know what BTC is. It's at 60,000. If somebody was bullish when BTC was at 97, you gotta be careful. You got to be careful, guys. Yeah, you gotta be careful. You look. This is my approach on this market, and this is how I see this market. If you want to make money from the cryptocurrency market, you should only be interested in the weekly time frame and the monthly time frame, because this is where, once the trend is up, this is where the token can be in an uptrend for multiple months. Like, when I'm analyzing this market, that is my outlook on the market. I'm not interested in 2-3 days from now, I see the price of XRP at these levels. That's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is 3, 6, 12 months from now, I think that, the price of XRP could potentially reach these levels based on this bullish weekly and this bullish monthly. And this is why, most of my content is bearish, because when I look at Solana, when I look at XRP, based on the chart, I know 3, 6, even 12 months from now, the price of Solana is more likely to be lower than higher. Because when the monthly looks like this, the only targets that you can think about, only targets that you can think of, or you can even try to predict, is the downside targets. There's no way I look at something that looks like this and, come to a conclusion that I have a Solana that goes back into the $200 range. Could we go back into the $200 range? Yeah, probably. But the probabilities of that happening, is lower compared to the probabilities of a retracement, all the way down into these into these lower targets. So, only guy I know besides you is it's going lower is the FFA guy from Freedom Financial Academy. Let's say I have 100K XRP and I sell now. Will I make more waiting and buying back in? Look, I can't give you financial advice, but I'm just going to say this. If I have an XRP bag, I am getting out of that position. And my reason is this, okay? I know you're taking a loss, but it is what it is, man. Because holding on to this position, you risking... Let me make sure I have these levels correct. Like, you are basically looking at another potential 50% crash. Now, the thing is this, right? Not only are you looking at a 50% crash, you are also going to lose on Satoshis, because those XRP that you have today, their purchasing power in Bitcoin is going to decrease. So what I've always say is, if you still want to be in crypto, let's say you don't want to exit, you don't want to exit your token, but it's in a bear market. Instead of holding XRP, just convert your XRP into Bitcoin. So at least, even though Bitcoin is depreciated, depreciating dollar wise in USD, in Satoshis, your XRP is going to appreciate because you are going to have Satoshi buy power. All right. The buy power in Satoshi is what you need, guys. You don't need XRP right now. You need Satoshis. If you take your XRP right now and you convert it into Bitcoin, and let's just say Bitcoin bottoms around, I don't know, let's just say $50,000 is the bottom of Bitcoin bear market. If your XRP goes all the way down, even if your XRP doesn't go all the way down into the 60 cents range, I promise you, your XRP that was converted into Bitcoin is going to be able to purchase more XRP once the bottom is actually in and during the next bull market. So maybe instead of purchasing $100,000 XRP, you probably purchase $200,000 XRP. And I know it kind of, it might not make sense if you haven't been around this market for some time, but not only are you losing purchasing power in dollars by staying in XRP, you are also losing purchasing power in Bitcoin because your Satoshi value is going much, much lower, guys. All right. An example of that is this right here. Let's say in 2020, 20 Ethereum bought 1 Bitcoin. All right. Let's say in 2020, 20 Ethereum bought 1 Bitcoin. In 2026, how many Ethereum do you need to buy Bitcoin? So Ethereum is currently, was that a good example or a terrible example? In 2026, you have Ethereum at $1,900, okay? So if we take 1,900 times 20, that gives us $38,000. So in 2026, 20 Ethereum only gets you, almost a half a Bitcoin. Just think about how bad that is. That is the problem staying in XRP throughout the entire bear market. Instead of actually converting that XRP into Bitcoin. All right. Go from your altcoins, go into Bitcoin. Yes, we are in a bear market, but your purchasing power is going to maintain its Satoshi value. Instead of devaluing your Satoshis, you are going to be able to still have the same purchasing power. So, look, I'm telling you right now, man, that $100,000 XRP, once the bear market is finally over, let's just say that $100,000, I mean, how much is that? That could potentially gives you, that could potentially give you how much Bitcoin right now or how much Satoshis. Anyway, look, you kind of got the example, right? So anyways, guys, man, let's keep it going. Let me talk about MSTR, right? So MSTR, and then we'll look at some. Actually, forget about MSTR. Let's kind of. Oh, damn, chat. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. Look, what do you guys want me to talk about? Give me some tokens, guys. Put them in the chat quickly. I'll give you a quick, I'll give you a quick TA, and then we'll probably do this. Do I have time later? Probably not. Yeah, we'll do this again tomorrow. If you guys have some stuff, put them in the chat, man. We'll look at them quickly, and then we'll call it a day. Yeah, BTC $66,000. I think we're going lower. I think you're looking at Bitcoin in this range for probably a few weeks, and then we're gonna get a dump into the low 50s, potentially 40s. But let's see how that plays out. Yeah. What do you guys have? Chad, do you have anything? Is there any altcoin? Because I always talk about my altcoins, but I know you guys, you probably are not holding any of the stuff that's on my watch list. So if you have some altcoins, man, put them in the chat. Let me analyze them quickly, and then we'll stop there. Sui, 87 cents. Look, my belief is that Sui is, basically coming all the way down below 50 cents. I think, somewhere around here, I believe somewhere around here is where it makes sense to build a position. And I'm not saying build a position once the price is here. What I'm saying to you is, we are probably coming somewhere around here. But if you want to do something, wait for something that looks like this where, Sui starts breaking some structures. Like, I don't know how this is all going to play out. Maybe something that looks like this. And then, build a position somewhere around here. All right, wait for this to take place and then start building a position somewhere around here. This could potentially give you like a beautiful trend line that looks like that. You get a breakout, price breaks above some, moving averages, and this will be the new bull market. Yeah, so be a little bit more patient, guys. Let me see. SHX. Is this a crypto? All right, so weekly, this thing is in a long-term downtrend. If I go to the daily, even the daily is in a long-term downtrend. So, yeah, there's really nothing much here other than we want to see a reversal of this. Now, this looks like a fairly new project, though. So, probably, unless we have something else with more data out there. Let me see. Do we have anything else? Let me see this right here. Oh, okay, this is better. So if I'm looking at this right here, yeah, look, a long-term downtrend. Yo, can you imagine if you bought somewhere up here? I mean, this is bad. So if I'm looking at this, all right, this already looks really bad. Like, at least I want to see some bullish divergence on this weekly and, my RSI. If I go to the monthly, I mean, a very clear downtrend. So on the monthly, like, target should be 0.002809. That is a clear target. That's like another 50% dump. That's like another 50% dump. We don't have to come all the way down, but, I would say be a little bit more patient. Wait for some consolidation on the weekly. If the bottom comes in, trust me, guys, look, you're going to get something like this. Or even better, you're going to get something like this where, it takes months to build a stage for the next bull market. So if I'm looking at this, to me on the weekly, my first rule is you got to break above my 21 weekly moving average. So if I'm looking at this, we are nowhere near the 21 weekly. Damn, I got to have to refresh this. Yeah, I got to hurry up. I need to be done with this. So, yeah, my first rule is you got to get above your 21 weekly. If I'm looking at this, it doesn't look good. All right, I'm expecting this moving average to continue all the way down until the bottom is actually in. And whenever you have a monthly pullback, the bottom process, you probably get some bullish divergences on the MACD and the RSI. So once you see a MACD trending up, RSI trending up, while the price still giving you those lower lows, that could be, something to look into. But as of right now, yeah, look, even on the daily, like, I need price to, bare minimum, you got to get above 0.008. That to me is a first test. So you can get above this. I want to see a pullback. All right, go up, give me a pullback. I want to see what the pullback do. Do we continue down or do we put in a higher low? I want to see another move, another pullback, and then I'm comfortable to say, okay, the bear market is over, and this is the beginning of an uptrend. Also, when you go to the weekly, if you simply put a trend line right here, and it's kind of hard to actually make one. Like, this does not look good at all. And then I think I analyzed this the other day. I need something with data. Here we go, right here. There you go. Uh, the long term does not look good. At least this weekly does not look good to me. Very clear lower highs, lower lows. If I'm on the daily right here, let me get rid of these EMAs. If I'm on the daily right here, okay. Daily kind of going sideways. These are the lows right here. But still, we have a clear downtrend. The 4 hour, 4 hour looks interesting. So let me see if we broke above these highs right here, which is really good. Broke above those highs. So let me see what we do here. Do we put in a higher low? All right, if we can go up, I would like to see one more pullback, and then I want to see another higher low. To me, this is what my approach will be. Now, if you want to trade this, short term, then you gotta have to go down to not even the 1 hour. You probably want to go down to like the 15 minutes. So if you're on the 15 minutes, I'll give you a trade right here. So you already have a breakout. So what that means is the structure was broken. Here we go. So if I put a trend line right here, I am perfectly fine with an entry above this yellow line with a stop loss just right below 0.018. That will be my approach. In the short term, and my target, I'm looking at this range right here, somewhere between 2 cents. I think this will be my target. So basically what this looks like is I'm going after, let's say this is an entry, this is a stop loss right here. I'm risking about 5% of my capital, and I'm going after a 12 to 14% move. I think this is a really good trade, but this is a short term though. Long term, I don't think you have a setup for that. And I don't look, most of these stuff, man, you probably won't get anything. Like you probably won't get anything in, anytime soon. Anyways, this is the last one right here. There we go. Long term, oh man, you gotta stay away from stuff that looks like this. This looks really, really bad. Really, really bad. Wow. Yeah. I mean, look at this. Like, I wouldn't touch this even if you pay me to do it. I mean, look at this. This is I mean, how low does it go? How low does this thing go? This thing you need you gotta have some crazy patience for this. So yeah, look, first of all, price is gonna have to get above these levels right here. That's already a lot of asking. Yeah, you need to see something that looks like this on the weekly. Here we go. I'm looking at 21 EMA. It's not far from the price. Looks really good. All right, following up very closely, but yeah, you need to get something that looks like this. And you don't want to be a buyer right here. You want to be a buyer somewhere around here, or at least after this breakout and this pullback. That's where you want to be a buyer. Anyways, guys, appreciate you guys. I got other stuff to worry about. I'll see you guys later. Tomorrow, actually.